Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and it is the 15th of December, which means we are opening that double-digit door on our advent calendar of Christmas horror movies. And today, the film that I want to put under Santa's searchlight is the 2004 movie from Canada, Decoys. Written and directed by Matthew Hastings and also written by Tom Barry. I didn't really know exactly what to make of this just by looking at the poster. In fact, this is one of the worst posters I've ever seen in terms of actually trying to represent what the fuck this movie was about. It's monochromatic, it's slightly creepy, mostly bland, and doesn't really say anything. So I was quite surprised when I found a movie that actually had a pretty high production value. And when this movie kicks off, we are introduced to the characters of Luke and Roger, college freshmen that are making their way through, and it is now approaching winter break. It's kind of getting to the holiday season. They're doing nominations for the Ice Queen, things like that. And in typical high school or early college hijinks, they have their eyes set on one thing: losing their virginity. Making this their end-all be-all goal, it kind of falls under a little bit of a serendipitous moon when they get introduced to two new transfer students, both of whom are quite hot. Lily and her cousin Constance are both quite friendly and seething with seductive sexuality, which seems to be a bit of a home run for Luke and Roger. Unfortunately, it appears that these two girls have more going on than just wanting to get it on. And what follows from there is a Species-esque horror movie mixed with a frat boy comedy. And I gotta be honest, I wanted to like this a lot more than I did. At least at first. The lowbrow, silly, get-laid-at-any-cost college humor was, I've had my fill of it over the course of my life. And at the risk of sounding like an internet grandpa, I just got to admit that I'm not the target demographic, at least not anymore. I grew up in the era of PCU, American Pie, Road Trip, so on and so forth, and I was delighted to be a part of that, but that's kind of a bygone era for me. But even as I found myself somewhat disinterested in the characters and the comedy, I did kind of find myself interested in the horror aspects of this. Like I said, it actually had a somewhat decent production value, which was a lot more than I was expecting just before I clicked play. However, on the side of the comedy that didn't work for me, I do have to admit that it retained its stupid, silly antics to the point where I actually started to come around and find it endearing. There were a few moments, especially towards the end, that I just couldn't help but laugh at, and there were some storyline elements that took me a little bit by surprise. I'm not going to say that this was a well-rounded, fully fleshed out character study, but it did rise above the one-dimensional aspect that it started out with. And so when just looking at the last half hour of this, the notion that it actually managed to surprise me, it managed to have at least a little bit more depth than I gave it credit for, and the stupid parts were starting to charm me, I wound up finding myself on the ass end of the end credits with a smile on my face. Who knew? So even though I wasn't really the target demographic, I do have to admit that I did enjoy my experience. For a comedy, it's not the funniest, and for a horror, it's not the scariest, but it still managed to wind up in a position of being pleasantly entertaining. And if that's all you're really looking for, then there's nothing wrong with that, and on that basis, yes, I absolutely do recommend Decoys. And with all that being said, it's time to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like this, please click like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.